What if the next world war began in silence beneath the waves? In the shadow of the Cold War, the ocean became the ultimate battlefield, a place where whispers meant death and steel beasts stalked unseen. These films dared to expose that secret war fought in darkness and fear. Each one feels shockingly real, drawn from classified missions and forbidden truths. Let us dive into the deep. Number 10. The Bedford Incident, 1965. It was marketed as a tense naval drama, but audiences left theaters shaken. The Bedford Incident was more than a thriller, it was a warning. Set aboard a U.S. destroyer shadowing a Soviet submarine, it captured the claustrophobia and madness that came with the nuclear standoff. Captain Finlander, played with cold perfection by Richard Widmark, embodied the dangers of obsession and authority unchecked. His ship became a symbol of America's paranoia, where one wrong command could end the world. Sidney Poitier's presence as a civilian journalist added a layer of moral tension, highlighting how truth and propaganda collided aboard military vessels. Behind the scenes, the film stirred government unease. Navy advisors objected to its depiction of near-accidental nuclear war, insisting it was exaggerated. Yet the director James B. Harris based the story on real near misses between American and Soviet fleets. The tension in those cramped sets was so authentic that extras reported nightmares during production. When the final shocking twist arrived, audiences sat in stunned silence. There was no music, no glory, just devastation. Critics later called it prophetic, citing real Cold War incidents that mirrored the film's ending. Decades later, the Bedford Incident still feels like a glimpse into military insanity during an era when a single blip on sonar could doom humanity. Its silence echoes louder than explosions ever could. Number 9. The Spy Who Came In From the Sea, 1968. Almost forgotten today, this British thriller blurred the line between espionage and survival. Set aboard a defecting Soviet submarine, the film followed a weary captain who realized that betrayal and loyalty were merely tools of politics. Audiences praised its gritty realism, but the government did not. Rumors spread that the script was inspired by actual defections and submarine hunts conducted off Norway. The production even filmed inside a decommissioned Royal Navy sub, which made it eerily authentic. Actors endured weeks in cold, cramped corridors, and many suffered seasickness. The director insisted on realism over comfort, saying that if the audience did not feel trapped, they would not understand the Cold War. When the film premiered, it faced heavy censorship in several NATO countries. The Royal Navy reportedly demanded the removal of scenes that showed nuclear weapons procedures. Some theaters pulled the movie within days, claiming it spread anti-military sentiment. Still, critics admired its nerve. The Times of London called it the most honest depiction of Cold War dread since Dr. Strangelove. For years, the film was lost to obscurity until a remastered edition appeared on European television in the early 2000s. Watching it now feels like uncovering a classified document buried under decades of silence. It captures the moral corrosion of men who fought wars no one ever admitted were real. Number 8. Ice Station Zebra, 1968. Big budget, bold and drenched in Cold War spectacle. Ice Station Zebra was both a Hollywood event and a subtle act of revelation. Starring Rock Hudson and Patrick McGoohan, it portrayed an American submarine racing to the Arctic to recover stolen satellite film before the Soviets. On the surface, it was thrilling. Beneath it lay whispers of authenticity. Many veterans noticed that the plot mirrored real spy missions involving secret reconnaissance satellites and polar recovery teams. MGM denied the connection, but insiders hinted that the Pentagon had quietly reviewed the script. The production was plagued by secrecy. Crew members were barred from discussing filming locations. Hudson was reportedly frustrated by endless technical consultations that slowed shooting, but the director demanded precision. Even the submarine interiors were built to exact specifications provided by unidentified consultants believed to be ex-Navy officers. Critics were divided. Some called it a masterpiece of tension, while others found it too clinical. Yet audiences in military towns recognized details too accurate to be coincidence. In later years, declassified reports revealed U.S. operations similar to the film's story. Suddenly, Ice Station Zebra seemed less fiction and more warning. Its legacy endures as a polished Hollywood mask hiding a fragment of Cold War truth. It reminds us that even glossy thrillers can conceal a classified heartbeat beneath their frames. Number 7. Hostile Waters, 1997. Though made decades after the Cold War, Hostile Waters remains one of the most unnerving submarine films ever produced because it is based on a true disaster, the sinking of the Soviet submarine K-219 off Bermuda in 1986. The film pulled no punches in showing what really happened beneath those black waves. Rutger Hauer portrayed the doomed Soviet captain who fought to prevent nuclear catastrophe after a missile explosion tore through his vessel. The tension was unbearable not because of fantasy, but because of reality. The men aboard were ordinary sailors, trapped between death by fire and death by radiation. Across the ocean, American destroyers watched helplessly. When it aired on television, some governments protested. Russian veterans condemned the portrayal, claiming it exaggerated Western interference, while American officials quietly admitted that the film's classified details were disturbingly accurate. The screenplay drew from declassified naval transcripts and eyewitness accounts that mirrored the chaos and heroism that followed the explosion. Production itself mirrored the claustrophobic conditions of the real incident. Actors filmed for weeks inside steel tubes built to exact dimensions of a Soviet submarine. Temperatures reached unbearable levels under the lights, and several fainted during the missile bay sequences. Critics hailed the film as one of the most realistic depictions of underwater warfare ever made. It had no glamour, only dread. By the end, the audience was left shaken by how close the world had come to nuclear disaster. Hostile Waters is not just a thriller, it is a testament to human courage and the thin line that separates peace from apocalypse. Number 6. The Silent Enemy, 1958. Before Cold War paranoia had fully taken shape, this British film set the stage for what would come. The Silent Enemy followed the real-life exploits of Lieutenant Lionel Crabb, a Royal Navy diver who disappeared under mysterious circumstances while investigating Soviet ships in the mid-1950s. Released shortly before the official scandal around Crabb's disappearance, the film seemed almost prophetic. It presented underwater warfare as a battle of nerves fought in silence and secrecy. Audiences were fascinated by the mix of heroism and espionage, while the British government grew nervous. Reports claimed that the Admiralty tried to prevent certain sequences from being shown, especially those depicting sabotage operations in foreign waters. The filmmakers refused, insisting that the story honored naval bravery. Ironically, only months after its release, the real Lionel Crabb vanished during a covert dive near Portsmouth, sparking national controversy and international tension. The Silent Enemy was quietly pulled from some theaters during that time. Its star, Lawrence Harvey, later admitted he was interrogated by intelligence officers about the film's production details. Despite this, it became a cult favorite among naval veterans who admired its technical realism and underwater cinematography decades ahead of its time. Its legacy endures as an eerie precursor to Cold War fiction that turned out to be far too close to reality. When viewed today, it feels like a premonition of the murky world where patriotism and espionage became indistinguishable. Number 5. Das Boot, 1981. Few films have captured the suffocating terror of submarine warfare like Das Boot. What began as a German television miniseries turned into one of the most haunting theatrical releases in history. It did not glorify war, it dismantled it. The story followed a German U-boat crew in World War II, yet its psychological horror echoed the Cold War's moral claustrophobia. The men endured fear, exhaustion, and isolation so intense that even viewers felt the pressure of the ocean around them. Director Wolfgang Petersen demanded total realism. The submarine set was built to the exact dimensions of a Type 7 U-boat and mounted on a hydraulic system that rocked violently during scenes of attack. The actors were required to live in these cramped quarters for months, sweating under blinding lights and inhaling recycled air to mirror their characters' suffering. When the film premiered, it shocked both German and Allied audiences. Veterans called it disturbingly accurate. Politicians complained that it humanized the enemy. American distributors hesitated before releasing it, fearing backlash during the height of Cold War rivalry. Yet the film triumphed. It earned international acclaim and 6 Oscar nominations, proving that truth resonates beyond propaganda. Its influence rippled across decades, shaping every submarine film that followed. Das Boot remains the definitive portrait of life beneath the surface, where nationalism suffocates and humanity gasps for breath. It showed that the true enemy was not the opposing flag, but the abyss within. Number 4. The Hunt for Red October, 1990. When The Hunt for Red October surfaced in theaters, it felt less like a movie and more like a confession. Based on Tom Clancy's novel, it imagined a rogue Soviet submarine captain attempting to defect to the West with a nuclear missile sub. But what audiences did not know was how close the story came to actual Cold War events. Sean Connery commanded the screen as Captain Ramius, a man weary of ideology who risked everything to prevent nuclear war. The tension was built not on explosions, but on silent sonar pings and the hum of machines holding the fate of the world. Every frame carried the chill of authenticity. The U.S. Navy cooperated in the production, but only partially. Certain sequences depicting stealth maneuvers and sonar tactics were filmed using invented terminology after the Pentagon refused to clear real data. Despite these restrictions, insiders claimed that the filmmakers still revealed too much. Some scenes were later edited following quiet military objections. The production faced major logistical nightmares. A full-scale replica submarine was built on hydraulic platforms and cost millions to move across sound stages. Connery and co-star Alec Baldwin spent weeks rehearsing inside the claustrophobic set, enduring heat exhaustion and motion sickness. Critics hailed the film as the definitive Cold War thriller. Veterans praised its accuracy, while others whispered that it depicted a real Soviet defection incident that had been classified. In the decade since its release, The Hunt for Red October remains a symbol of cinematic precision and geopolitical fear. It did more than entertain it, reminded the world that peace often depends on the courage of one man who dares to turn his vessel toward hope. Number 3. K-19, The Widowmaker, 2002. This was the film no one in Russia wanted to see made. K-19. The Widowmaker told the true story of the first Soviet nuclear submarine that suffered a catastrophic reactor failure in 1961. It was a disaster so secret that even the families of the Fayage dead were silenced for decades. Harrison Ford and Liam Neeson led the cast, portraying men trapped in a nightmare of loyalty and radiation. The film's claustrophobic atmosphere felt almost unbearable. What made it more haunting was that nearly every event shown actually happened. The crew sacrificed their lives to prevent a nuclear explosion that could have triggered global conflict. During production, controversy erupted. Russian veterans accused the filmmakers of distorting history. The Russian Navy refused cooperation, claiming that classified material had been stolen to shape the script. Even American studios were nervous about its political sensitivity. Director Catherine Bigelow insisted on authenticity. The cast trained with real submariners and filmed in freezing waters aboard decommissioned vessels. Many suffered hypothermia and exhaustion. Ford later said that it was the most grueling film of his career. Upon release, the film divided audiences. Some critics praised its honesty, while others found it too bleak. Yet in time it gained respect as one of the most human portrayals of Cold War duty ever filmed. K-19. The Widowmaker is not about victory or ideology. It is about men who faced death in silence to save the world and were forgotten by history. Number 2. Phantom, 2013. Phantom quietly surfaced long after the Cold War ended, but it resurrected the terror of those years with chilling accuracy. Loosely based on the mysterious sinking of the Soviet submarine K-129 in 1968, the film starred Ed Harris as a captain haunted by visions and hunted by his own crew. The premise was simple yet terrifying. A rogue faction within the Soviet Navy seizes control of a submarine carrying nuclear missiles, hoping to start a war that will never be traced back to them. The line between reality and madness dissolves in the darkness. Behind the camera, the production fought its own battles. The film's script was reportedly altered after consultations with retired intelligence officers who warned that some scenes revealed real Cold War procedures. The crew shot on a retired diesel submarine under suffocating conditions that left actors pale and dizzy after hours of filming. When released, Phantom received mixed reviews, but naval historians were stunned by its realism. Its sonar codes, diving maneuvers, and communications protocols were so detailed that some experts believed the filmmakers had accessed restricted information. Over time, the movie found its audience among Cold War enthusiasts who recognized its deeper message. Phantom explored not just the danger of nuclear weapons, but the invisible weight of secrecy that consumed every sailor who served beneath the waves. It stands as a late echo of a time when the world teetered on annihilation, and silence was more dangerous than sound. Number 1. The Enemy Below, 1957. Long before the Cold War fully ignited, The Enemy Below predicted the psychological tension that would define the coming decades. At first glance, it was a straightforward World War II naval duel between an American destroyer and a German U-boat. Yet beneath that surface, it captured something deeper: the paranoia, the respect, and the shared fear that linked enemies even in hatred. Directed by Dick Powell and starring Robert Mitchum and Kurt Jurgens, the film earned praise for its realism. Mitchum portrayed Captain Merle, a calm strategist haunted by past trauma. Jurgens played the German commander von Stolberg, a man disillusioned by his own orders. Their duel across the vast Atlantic was not just military, it was philosophical. Two weary professionals testing one another in a game where one mistake meant annihilation. What set The Enemy Below apart was its eerie authenticity. Naval consultants supervised every technical detail from sonar signals to torpedo launches. The tension of underwater silence felt suffocating. Audiences believed they were witnessing actual maneuvers because, in a way, they were. The film drew heavily on classified debriefings from real submarine engagements. But controversy shadowed its release. Some critics accused the film of being too sympathetic to the enemy during a time when war movies celebrated victory, not empathy. Others whispered that it hinted at a mutual recognition between American and German officers that mirrored future tensions between America and the Soviet Union. Behind the scenes, filming aboard real destroyers created endless chaos. Cast and crew battled seasickness, high winds, and malfunctioning sound gear. Mitchum himself fell ill during a night sequence, but insisted on finishing the take to preserve realism. When it premiered, The Enemy Below won an Academy Award for special effects and praise from veterans for accuracy. Yet its emotional resonance went far beyond spectacle. It showed that beneath ideology, men shared the same exhaustion, fear, and loneliness that would soon haunt an entire generation during the Cold War. Today, it feels like the first chapter of an invisible history, the beginning of the submarine mythos that would define decades of secret underwater warfare. It remains haunting proof that the real enemy is not the flag across the water, but the abyss beneath it. Every one of these films dives deeper than action. They expose the fear that once ruled the silent oceans and the minds of those who patrolled them. The Cold War may have ended, but the echoes of those steel giants still resound in every sonar ping and trembling heartbeat. Which of these submerged stories still chills you the most? Like, share, and join the dive below.